Hello guys, it's Shrimp Time here and welcome in yet another interesting, I hope, video about shrimp keeping. In today's video we are going to talk about cheaper alternative for keeping shrimps, keeping Caridina shrimps. We are going to talk about akadama soil. And I must say the idea of using akadama soil comes from my friend Eric Payton, and now I have those tanks for a couple of months and I can tell you a little bit about the way the tanks are running, the way they were set up, and the setups that I used for those tanks, because as you can see there are different setups and there are different shrimps in those setups, and under this soil there are some unusual or maybe usual solutions. So if you are interested, stay tuned. This is the first type of the setup, and as you can see we lack a little bit of plants in this tank and we use very thick layer of akadama soil. There's also under gravel filter in this tank, but it's not on the whole surface of the tank but only in the corner, in the back right corner, 10 centimeters long, 10 centimeters wide and 20 centimeters tall. And in this tank I use akadama soil in the very thick layer and in the under gravel filtration. And the idea of this, why we use thick layer, is because I think that if we use a lot of soil it can last us for longer. This is the first factor. Another important thing in this setup is that I use under gravel filtration, because I thought that when I'm using under gravel filtration with my other substrates, the pH of the tank, of the water in the tank, usually is a bit lower than if we use the soil without under gravel filtration. So this is a very, I think, maybe clever way to deal with the fact that this type of akadama soil can keep slightly higher pH. Another reason to use this thick layer of the soil is that I wanted to achieve a very big space of bacterial filtration in this tank, maybe even achieve some anoxic spots in the tank or even spots without any oxygen. And this is why I decided to use this way of keeping shrimps. We got two types of the shrimps in this setup. In one setup we got something like Steel's blue, which came from different tanks with my galaxy shrimps, with my boa shrimps, and they are only the culls from my tank. And in another setup we got those beautiful galaxy red shrimps. Now you can see the second type, the second idea of using akadama soil. And in this idea, if you look closer, you will see that we have not only the akadama soil, but we also have another type of active substrate. In these tanks there is environment soil, and I use this way of keeping or starting those tanks with pure red line because I didn't have a lot of akadama soil left. So I decided that I will use the environment soil, so that the environment soil will bring the pH a bit lower than the thin layer of akadama soil would. I also decided that to check if this way of setting up the tank will work, that I won't install in these tanks the under gravel filtration or UGF box. And the main reason is that I wouldn't get the good results of this experiment. As you can see, I keep in this tank pure red line shrimps, and you can write me a comment what do you think about the quality of those pure red line. Another important factor which you need to consider is that those pure red line shrimps will demand higher level of pH. On the other hand, the genetics in my pure red line isn't so diverse, so that the young shrimps and even the females don't want to breed as much. So this is another factor that you need to consider when you are judging those tanks. But very important thing is that even though this tank is quite young, I saw some females with eggs, so I think that in short time I will be able to check how is the survival rate of the young shrimps and how this tank works. I hope that this will be a good solution for keeping shrimps, because on the one hand it can make keeping shrimps cheaper, because akadama soil comparing to another active substrates can be very cheap, and we can buy akadama soil in very big amounts, because there are some spots that you will be able to buy bags of 50 liters of akadama soil or 25 liters of akadama soil, and the price of this soil is really cheap comparing to expensive active soil. As you can see, the shrimps look quite healthy. In this tank we got some of generation F1, so the shrimps are breeding in this tank with a thick layer of the soil set up, and depending if I will see a lot of breeding in this tank in next generation, I can consider switching my way of keeping some of my shrimp tanks to the akadama soil way, because you need to calculate the cost, especially that here the price of energy can get quite high and quite expensive, so we need to look for the way of cutting our costs. As you can see, this pack of shrimps didn't have any good selection. We need a little bit of time and we'll start to work on this as well, especially we got those black or dark red shrimps. And this is another pack that you can see that we got 2 breedings of F1 generation, so we got some batches straightened in the time of shrimps breeding, and then I think that this shows that this way of keeping your shrimp tanks can be very efficient. You need to remember that Carrick Payton, who keeps those shrimps, all of his shrimps I think on akadama soil, has proven that this methodology, this way of keeping shrimps can be very successful. Another very good advantage of keeping shrimps in this way is the fact that akadama soil won't bring your nitrogen levels up. It doesn't contain any fertilizers, at least the akadama soil that I use. And this is very important because you can take out some of the soil or maybe a major part of the soil from the tank and refill the tank with new soil. The only thing that you need to remember when you are doing this soft reset of the tank is that akadama soil contains a lot of dust, so you need to use some kind of sieve or maybe water to clean the soil, because the water in the tank can get very cloudy if you won't do that one step before setting up your tank. And guys, you can write me if you are interested in this type of keeping shrimps, and I maybe try to, or even ask questions in the comments, so I will try to answer all of the questions that you are interested about this methodology. And as always, I will try to advertise a little bit my Patreon page. If you like my content, you want to support me and maybe even learn a little bit about shrimp keeping, you can go to the Patreon. You got the link in the description. And if you are interested in another videos, here is a very, very important video that you can watch next. Thank you and keep on shrimping.